Hey there, welcome to LSAT Demon Daily. I'm Francesca. I'm a teacher and tutor with the Demon, and I'm here with Omar, a former student who is going to tell us about his LSAT journey. Omar, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. What about yourself?
Great, thanks. Great to have you on. So, Omar, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you started out with your LSAT journey? Give us the 50,000 foot view first. So, where you started out and where you ended up, and then we'll dig into it.
Alrighty. So, started off back in 2022 in January. I knew I wanted to take the LSAT, but I had absolutely no idea what to do. So, I started off reading books, as silly as that sounds, for a whole month. I'm like, let me get my reading comprehension up. And that was a bad idea. So from the first week of January to the last week, I was like, okay, I'm reading a bunch of books, whatever, for leisure. So then January 28th, I take a practice diagnostic, like on Khan Academy, doing absolutely like without no prior knowledge on the LSAT. Take it, I get a 133. I was like, wow, my life is over. I'm not going to law school. I started searching up the median LSAT around regional schools around in Chicago, and it was nowhere near 133. I'm not even sure if you go to a law school with a 130. So a few months go by, and I've been using other prep companies. The issue I had with other prep companies is that they're very mechanical. Like it just, I don't think in a mechanical sort of fashion. I'm not no engineer or anything, so I just couldn't think that way. So lo and behold, I was browsing Reddit, and Reddit defends either this prep company or another prep company. And then I kept hearing the demon, demon, demon. I'm like, man, what is this stuff? So I signed up for the demon, and since then, my mind is blown. I was like, wow, what have I been doing the last 3 months? I wasted my time, whatever. Started with the demon in about March of 2022. First mistake I made, I had a test scheduled for June without even knowing what my score was, whatever. And then one day I was in a class with, I think Ben or Nathan, I can't really remember. And I was like, yeah, I have a test scheduled. And they're like, why do you have a test scheduled? I'm like, oh, it's just a timeline. And then, they ate me up in that class. I was like, oh God, these people are nuts. But I actually appreciate the tough love. So I canceled that test. And then I took a PT, I think it was April 7th. I remember that day because it's my mom's birthday. I was like, okay, I'll take the June test if I could score over 150. Took a PT on April 7th. I scored a 147. I was like, oh God. And I was all over the place. My logical reasoning was pretty low. When you're at 147, everything's all over the place. You really can't,
Yeah.
you're not scoring great in one section and, fucking up in other sections. So then I was okay. I got to go back to the drawing board, and I met Dylan on the Demon, and me and him worked together twice a week or once a week or something with logical reasoning, and he transformed the way I think. And ever since then, I hated logical reasoning, and I love logic games, and reading comprehension is a whole other story we don't need to get into. But logical reasoning became my favorite section. So I'm PTing, whatever, and I'm still stuck. I'm still at 153, 155, and I'm like, man, no, what's going on? So I realized, I started doing a few things differently, started attending more classes, and then thanks to the Demon, I met four students. Shout out Dale, Paige, Jenna, and Monica. And we attended all the class together, and we're like, okay, guys, we have the same goals in mind. Let's just study together every single day. So we made a group chat, and we take a time section in the morning, for example, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. And since we're all over the country, we'd review it around 4 p.m. Eastern Time or something. We do that every day at 10 different classes. And, once you're teaching somebody, especially those who are using a demon too, your scores dramatically just go up, like they're just going up. So at this point, I had a test day in mind, even though once again, I shouldn't have done this. I think it was August. I was like, oh, I'm studying from March to August. That's such a long time. And every attorney I was talking to, like, oh yeah, 3 months, it's way more than enough. What are you doing? But what they didn't mention is that they paid sticker price to regional schools and schools that you shouldn't even pay sticker price to. You could justify paying sticker to Harvard. Sometimes you can't even justify it. But anyway, they paid sticker prices for all the schools they attended. And I was like, man, I really can't take their advice. So I'm going to keep studying, and keep going on and on. So August, I had to cancel that again. So Ben was like, you just donated another $200 for LSAC. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not scheduling any test until I can score, pretty high in the PT. So the students who I was studying with, they took, I think, September, and everything went well for them, I guess. I can't really remember. They scored pretty high, 160s. One of the highest we scored was like 169, one of the students. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to take October. October's coming around and I'm PTing. Prior to this, like the last 2 months, I'm like, man, I've been studying so long and 4 to 5 hours a day. I'm like, I should just chill out. I should just like do 2 hours here, 2 hours there. The second I did that, my scores literally went up like dramatically. I was stuck at a 159, and then I took a PT. I was at a 163, and then my last PT prior to the test, I scored a 167, and I was like, okay, wow, I'm ready. I could, with a 167 or mid 160, I could go to law school for free for schools I'm applying to. Now, I want everybody who's listening to this to note that my goal is not big law, so you shouldn't do what I did. My goal is to open my own firm in the future, but that's a whole other topic to talk about. So I was like, okay, 165 or something, give me a full ride. So I was okay, I'll take the test. October comes around and I'm hearing all these crazy proctor stories. I have a bunch of double shots set up in my room from Starbucks. And I'm telling the proctors, listen, don't pause the test. If you're gonna pause it, please let me know. And I was being very like firm with them. They couldn't mess around basically. And my experience with proctor was the best experience I ever had. They weren't even there. The only downside to it was maybe they dragged like 5 minutes or so when we were switching sections. That happens. Unfortunately, I get two reading comprehensions, and reading comprehension was just not my thing. I'm just not sure why till this day. And I could give advice on logic games and logic reasoning. Reading comprehension was just not my thing. So I get two reading comprehensions. It was a first section and a last section. So my test started off as reading comp, logical reasoning, logic games, and then reading comp again. Finished my test. I knew I did pretty well. I'm like, okay, I for sure got over 160, and I just went on about my day. So, I didn't really study afterwards. I just couldn't. I was just so burnt out, you could say. So I was just chilling for a whole month or so, or 3 weeks, however long you have to wait for a score. Scores come out. It was a 163. I was like, okay, cool. So this was in October. And unfortunately, I did the opposite of Ben and Nathan's advice, but it worked out to my advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So I applied, I think in December. I kind of neglected a personal statement I thought I was going to write a personal statement a week. My story is a bit different. So I had many people read over it, and, I had to, it was just a lot of things I left out for last minute. So I applied December 1st to 4 schools. So keep in mind, my conditions were I want to stay in Chicago. I was born and raised in Chicago. I don't want to work big law, and my goal is not a T14. So I applied to DePaul, which I went to undergrad for, so I was fine going there. IIT Chicago Kent, and Loyola Chicago, and Northwestern. I'm not sure why I didn't apply to U Chicago. I just didn't think about it, I guess. So it took a while. Most of them got back to me by mid-February, actually. I received a full ride from DePaul. Part of it was that I went there for undergrad, but I think the scholarship was 80% before the undergrad stuff. And then Kent, I received like a 95% scholarship. I'd be paying $15,000 for 3 years. And then Loyola, I received like a 90% scholarship. I'd be paying $30,000 for 3 years. So I toured all of them. I like Loyola the most. And yeah, that's about it.
That's great. So you made exactly a 30-point improvement. You've got a great offer on the table from a school that you want to go to. And honestly, you touched on a lot of the big things that I was going to ask about. So that's great. I wanted to come back to, you said that Dylan transformed how you saw logical reasoning. What do you mean by that? What was the change there?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I use another prep company, and it was super mechanical. I can't remember half the words. I forgot all the LSAT stuff you could say. Mm-hmm. I think they're saying take the stimulus and then think of something else. And there's a gap between a stimulus and skip this question and that stuff.
Yeah.
And Dylan's like, we'd literally stay online together for an hour doing one question. And he's like, no, think again. No, think again. And then I'm like, wow, how come I never thought this way? And then I think more in a rational way. I'm like, okay, wait, no, that doesn't work like that. Wait, that's a part to whole flaw. I know the answer, right? Even before going through the questions, sometimes I'd even know what question type if it was my kind of day. So thankfully, Dylan helped a lot with that. that's basically pretty much how it worked. Also, I would always try to finish the entire section. So I
Yeah.
think it was 24 to 25, or I can't remember, 26 questions. I'm like, okay, I got to get to 24. I got to get 25. He's like, no, you just got to chill out, get the easy points out of the way. And then if you stop at 20 and you get a -5, that's better than you going to 25 and getting a -7 or 8, just for rushing. So I think I even did that on a real test. I'm pretty sure, I think a 163 on that test was scaled at a negative, I don't know, 15 perhaps. So I'm pretty sure most of my my marks were from reading comprehension. So because logic reasoning felt great, and in logic games, I for sure knew I got a -0.
Yeah. So overall, a couple big things stand out to me in the LSAT journey that you went through there. We've been talking a lot on the podcast lately about when to know when you're ready to take the test and not taking it before you're ready. So I don't think we need to get into that too much. But I think that your use of study buddies and of like leaning on people who are also on this grind with you, that seems to have been a really helpful thing. That's a good thing for folks to think about. And I also like what you were saying about thinking sometimes I need to take some people's advice with a grain of salt, right? I think it's super important to take the advice of people that you want to be like in some regard. And there are going to be so many people on your LSAT, but also in the bigger picture legal journey, they're going to have things to say and opinions on the decisions that you're making in terms of school and career and all that. And people should be careful to listen to the advice of people whose outcomes they would like to see for themselves.
Yeah, definitely. I could touch on that actually, because that's one thing I suffered from. And I was telling people who are taking the LSAT right now, if your goal is a 180, you can't really ask me how to get to a 180, because I personally never got to a 180. If your goal is to get to a 160, you could ask me. But the problem with me, I was trying to get to, while everybody wants to get to a 180, you can't lie to yourself. You want to shoot for the stars. But, like I said, this was enough to get me full ride. So I'd go and ask an attorney who got a 150, 155. But like, I was like, why am I asking this guy when he's never been to the area that I want to go to?
Yeah.
And then one day it clicked to me. I was like, you know what? I just got to, focus on myself and perhaps only ask those who went above and beyond.
Yeah. Omar, I think one of the big takeaways from your story is that you had a very clear vision, you still do, of what you wanted, what you want to get out of your legal career and what you're actually aiming for here. And these things that you're touching on, like I wasn't interested in big law. I wasn't interested in leaving Chicago. I didn't need to be at a T14 school. That type of clarity is what helped you set the parameters for the goals that you had with your LSAT study. And that's part of how you've ended up with these outcomes that are really great and that are really great for you specifically and that are going to set you up well for your career. I think that's something really important for people to think about.
Yeah, that's extremely correct. I don't want anybody listening to this right now and thinking, oh, he got a 163 to a full ride at Loyola. Well, chances are I'm probably not going to big law. And if I do, I'd have to be at the top of the class, which is, I think, top 10%. And a lot of other factors compared to going to, for example, Northwestern or U of Chicago in Chicago. But then again, big law is not my goal. So please don't do what I'm doing if big law is your goal. If big law was my goal, I'd take another year off. I'm going to be a KJD. So that probably affected my application. I'm not sure, but don't do what I'm doing, because I had a clear cut picture of what I want to do. So if you're like, oh, big law, you can't really have, you really can't have as a study process and like, okay, I could get a 163 and get a full ride somewhere. You definitely can, but you're not going to get, well, I can't say not, you might, or you might not, but chances are it's extremely slim.
Yeah. But the way that I would say in which people should be like you is in seeking out that clear vision for themselves, because it's so easy to stumble into this and being, oh, I guess I'll just kind of try this law school thing. And it sounds cool to go to a big prestigious school, but you get the best outcomes when you go into it knowing what you're looking for.
Definitely.
Omar, do you have any final advice for people who are on this grind too?
You put me on the spot, but one, make friends with the demon. It's not, your LSAT score is not curved, so it's not competitive. If you find genuine people like that, like I did, you guys are all going to succeed. Two, don't tell no one what you're doing. Just work hard in silence. And then, once you get the acceptances and stuff like that, you could show it off on LinkedIn. You could say, three, just don't give up. That's cookie cutter, but seriously, there's times where I was like, wow, why am I even doing this? Like it's miserable. And part of it is my fault for studying so much and not doing, less is more actually. So I should have done that in the beginning, but I learned so much about myself during this journey, and taking the LSAT transformed the way I think, that I'm actually glad I took the LSAT. Even if I didn't go to law school, I'm so glad I took the LSAT because, like I said, it transformed the way I think. And that's about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody keep your head down, stay at it. Hustle, what is it? Hustle in silence, let your success speak the noise or something.
Yeah, you got it. It's right there.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thank you, Omar. Email daily@lsatdemon.com if you'd like to ask us a question or share some LSAT or law school admissions news. Thank you for listening.